Hello once more, the Timix here, back with more of Let's Play the Factorio Way at long last. And this is shortly after the start. Of course, we've got the normal wreckage period here. We're just restarting here. I wasn't able to make it work with the save I had before, so I just start over and looking for a little more friendly area. I was looking mostly for something that didn't have everything so far apart. And if you take a look at the mini-map here, this one has stuff closer together. Now, there's some problems with it. There's not a lot of trees out here. I've got limited coal. So getting fuel could be an issue eventually. And we've got, don't have enough trees to absorb pollution. But this was the seventh regenerated world or whatever that I went with, and there was another one that was just ridiculous. It had huge fields of natural gas and oil nearby, and more than anything, they'd be in the way. If I built something there, I'd have to eventually tear it down, which wouldn't be that big of an issue, but I didn't want to have these big fields of advanced resources nearby. I mean, I didn't want it to be a total cakewalk type of map. I just wanted one where I didn't have to go back and forth so far. So we've got the stereotype, almost 400k, right next to the coal. We've got sapphirite, almost the same amount. You know, there's water nearby, there's space. We've got rubite and bobmonium. So other than the trees, we've got all the basic things. It's more compact, it's closer together. This works. So this is the one that I went with, and just sort of as a for better or worse, to see if I can go get over the hump. And I really thought that I could. Didn't end up working out so well. We'll get to that. So the main thing that I did is that I did a lot more multitasking. Like, for example, right early on, while the coal drill was going, I handcrafted the stone furnace, handcrafted the burner ore crusher, in between feeding the bits of coal into the drill. And then as soon as I had enough coal going, I, got the little bit of stone you need for the startup building for the bricks, and I got that baking while more coal was churning away. So I was trying to do more things at once, and that was the main theme of the restart here. That helped me get things going quite a bit faster, along with, of course, the closer fields to get. Alright, so this is about 15 to 20 minutes in, and we've got, they've got this loop here, and at this point in the first try, I didn't have a loop. Of course, it's a tiny one, but what I had is another inserter that was storing the coal, etc. And I'm just using this loop to store it, basically, at the moment. So this does require one more transport belt than what I was using before, but the other alternative is, I didn't need to spend the resources on building a chest. I didn't need to spend the resources on building another inserter or use the extra coal to fuel that inserter to store the coal. So, it just gave me a better deal. And of course, we've got the initial burner lab up. Zach Z, it says we've got the burner assembler. Now, one other thing is, look at the efficiency there on the burner assembler, because it's only at 35%, and it's normally 90%. And one thing that I discovered as I was going forward is that it actually makes a lot more sense to use the burner assembler with the default values. It makes a lot more sense to use the burner assembler at 90% than to get the turbine going, which is 40.5% efficiency on the coal, and then use that to power the regular standard electric assembly machine. And that's backwards, because everywhere else along the line you end up with, you do the burner tech, and then to some degree or another the basic electric tech is a little more efficient, then you get more advanced electric tech, and that's a little more efficient, and that that makes sense as a logical progression. So I just sort of view this as a flaw the way the mods interact. And it annoyed me enough that I just did a little personal edit, as you can see, and I changed it. So that actually slowed me down some, of course, during this stage of it. But to me, that was, better to have a more authentic and natural progression to things. So here we are, getting pretty close to 2 hours, an hour and 50 minutes or so. We've got the turbine up. We've gotten through the part of using that burner assembler, so now the actual electric assembler is a little bit better. We've got, one of the things is I'm using these, instead of the coal as well, using the regular inserters. They've got that little bit of drain, and but they don't consume nearly as much energy as these. So I'm just looking for those little efficiencies. And most of this time that I've spent, of course, has been in building up the materials I needed to do research. The burner assembler went through a lot of coal while it was churning out all of the electromagnet parts for the red vials that I had to do to get electricity and to get the basic logistics stuff and everything. But now we've got, and I did during that period just extend this loop a little bit so that it would hold enough coal to grab a little bit more at a time, and also because it needed it to serve, the turbine. The turbine's actually kind of in the way here, but to move it up farther or over here, whatever, I would have to extend the loop more, so I didn't want to do that. It's in the way of the coal patch, and I'll have to eventually move it, but that won't be a big deal, and that can come later on. So things were moving a little bit faster than before, despite the burner inserter or the burner assembler issue. Alright, and here we've got the automation 2. We've upgraded to the yellow assembling machine, which of course is going to be our workhorse for quite a while. Now, to get to this point the first time, it took me about just a hair under 3 hours. This time I managed, even with the other issues that we've talked about, I managed to do it about 25 minutes faster, so it's just over 2.5 hours. And the main reason is, again, as I've said, multitasking. Just having things get assembled as I'm mining out the resources. And I just really approach this almost like a speedrun type of deal, trying to micromanage things and redo things when they weren't efficient. Just because I wanted to get over the hump, and be able to deal with the aliens by the time they started attacking in force. And at this point, I've just finished putting this loop in here, extending the coal line to feed the Sapphirite operation. After I got the yellow assembler up and rolling, of course, the next step was to have things moving everywhere. So, I'd have coal here, and I'd run and grab it, and I'd get these machines up and get those moving, and I'd move it over here. You can see this one's run out. Didn't actually let that happen during the main line of the playthrough. But the whole point here is that, was playing that whole game of whack-a-mole, running around with the coal to the various things. And the idea was just keep them going. Just keep all the machines going, and then you gradually catch up. Because you get a little bit of surplus coal, and then you grab things out and have it thrown into somewhere to smelt it and then assemble it, and gradually then you get another machine up after a little while, and it started progressing that way. But it just throwing coal in all the machines, and now I don't have to throw coal in any of these, so I can spend more time working on other stuff, and it starts to snowball, or at least that's the hope. And it was shortly after this. As you can see, there's not a great amount of coal, and that doesn't even count the fact that I had to grab it and go fill up the stereotype drill that's feeding the copper operation, which I haven't been doing here while I try to explain this. It's, this one drill is not really cutting it, so it was shortly after this that I had to add a second one. Of course, boosting hazardous pollution, but also getting the ball rolling a little more. The industry is just up high enough that It's what had to happen. So here we are a little under 3.5 hours, and copper is fully connected as well with the usual setup, the chest to store extra stone if needed. And the coal is now running all the way around. You can see if you zoom out here a little bit, you can see the, the connections are just so much shorter. In the first run, I needed about 100 transport belt sections each direction to connect, from the coal to the sapphirite and the stereotype. And in this case, it's a fraction of that. It's maybe 15 or 20. And so everything came together so much faster for that reason. This is one of those areas where it really helped to have everything closer together. So here we're less than an hour later, and I've obviously done a big expansion here. The one big decision I made is I just needed to go for speed. And it's the one part where maybe you will say, hey, could you go back and do it again? Would you do it differently? And maybe I should have. Because the other option, of course, is what I did the first time, which is to go for research, take a little longer, go for research, and get electric mining. But the problem with that is it's really hard to fit it in. Especially when you don't have filter inserters yet, so then you got to go research filter inserters because you don't have clean patches of ore, or you've got to be moving the electric ones on the very edge and moving them around all the time. Then you got to be picking up stuff and moving that, and there's resources involved there. So I don't think it necessarily would have been any better. So I just said, look, we're just going to go for it. I've got these two crushers over here, the 4 mining drills here for iron, and then 5, and it usually only runs with 3 or 4, but every once in a while something will get down to this 5th one. I actually got a few chunks into my chest there. So, I've got this whole thing running, and for the moment, it's okay on 2 coal drills, but that would not last long. That's just because I had a bunch of extra stuff on the belt. I had to boost that up pretty quickly after this. But over here, I'm just building. I've got the gear wheels going in here for the transport belts, and I'm building ammunition, and here it's pulling off the extra stone, so I don't have to put as much in here. And all of that, the purpose for all of that is just to get stuff built up so I'm ready when I want to build a defensive perimeter with turrets. The other thing I did is sort of this over here was just the best way I could find to we're just getting rid of the stone. So we're just throwing it over there with these long-handed inserters, another research that I did. And this is very awkward, but it was the best quick and dirty way I could find to do it. So it's just sort of there. And now I can really start ramping up some things because, like, before I did this expansion, with only the 1 drill, if I was building, say I was building nanobot tubes, or I'm building gear wheels, or whatever, anything that's iron intensive, I had a big problem with it because I was like waiting on the iron to finish it. So that was one of the main reasons that I just needed to go with the expansion. And I thought about going with a little bit smaller, but it really turns out that I needed to go with at least 3 and probably the full 4 of the mining drills to keep everything supplied, because there are times when I just need a bunch of iron, and this made sure that I got it. So this is the, sort of bobmonium site. If you look right here, we've got just a little bit. It's just gone up. 94 bobmonium there to start. And what I'm doing with all this is, I've just eventually, like, this looks stupid going around here, but I couldn't find a better way to do it because I don't have any wood, so I could have done some convoluted thing with a couple long inserters or something, and I don't even know how that would have worked. But I said, you know what, just build it around. It's going to take a few more transport belts, just deal with it. We've got the ore sorter, of course, so that we can get the tin ore, the slag, and the silicon from the bobmonium, and then we're turning that into glass here. It's a metal mixing furnace so that it won't take anything but silicon, because I can set the recipe. And then I'm just storing the tin and the slag, because we'll deal with that whenever, and moving everything else around. So, we extended the coal line a little bit. But the main thing, of course, was all the transport belts and this and all the inserters. You know, it took a little bit of doing. It took about another half an hour, so we're about 15 minutes short of 5 hours at this point. But we're getting close. And unfortunately, it was right about exactly this time that the biters started to show up. And I wasn't ready for them, but I could take on small groups. So I wasn't really worried about it yet. Here to the west is where I put up the greenhouse. I'd done that research at the same time I was building up stuff for the bobmonium area with the ore sorter and everything. And this sort of completes the last thing that I've got to have, because you can't build turrets without wood. So I've got the greenhouse working. I'm using stone pipes this time. Again, this is the same system I used before with a buffer here in this chest of wood to make sure the seedlings keep going. It's just a little bit, you know, it's smaller. It's, you know, minimal compared to before. But you can see it's not that far away. It's going to come over here and hook up. And then I can start building all of the stuff I need for the turrets. Now, the thing about that's going on here right now with the fuel, as you can see, the pollution is just ridiculous. But the coal, we've used over 10% of that initial field. So I may also need to use the wood eventually as fuel, but, you know, I just sort of accept that right now I need the one to prime the rest of the system, and it'll take a little while. It'll get us enough wood to start rolling on things. I'll need to build other stuff because I need a bunch more nanobot tubes. See, I've only got 3 right now. I need a bunch of those to build the perimeter. I can get, you know, all the other stuff going for the electric poles and the inserters I need. So I have the time. I just wanted to get this started, get the system priming, and then go on and do some other things. Now, unfortunately, this is where things started to go south, because we start getting some biter attacks, and at first you're like, well, you know what I mean, I'm just going to let them take apart some of my base. We'll just see if we can recover this and rebuild. I mean, we don't quite have defenses up, but, you know, they're just going to, we'll take apart some of them, and we'll just see what happens, and blah, 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 blah. Well, the problem is they don't stop. Because on Rampant, you know, once you start killing some, see, there comes a whole nother huge group, and here's comes a group from the bottom, and now I'm dead. I mean, they just don't stop coming. Once you've let them get in like this, they reinforce each other from the other nests, the other clusters that they have. So they're just going to keep coming and coming for quite a while. I mean, it's not infinite, but it is until you destroy the nest that they think you're threatening. And right now, I have no way to attack, no way to defend myself, no way to survive. And so eventually what I did is, after trying a few other things here, is that I concluded, well, this setup really isn't possible. And I came to that conclusion that doing things the Factorio way, you know, the lazy bastard on steroids, whatever you want to call it, you know, Rampant is made to give, really, the way I see the mod is it's made to give the player who, you know, is playing the normal / typical way a much bigger challenge with biters. So you've got to get your defenses up fairly quickly. You've got to get a few weapon upgrades in there before you start taking them on. And, you know, that's no problem under normal circumstances. But when I've got to take a few hours and build up slowly in this sort of fashion, then you don't have that time. You don't have the grace period that you need to get the critical mass and get up and get moving. And, you know, I've gotten, you know, you could say I was close-ish, but even if I had a ring all the way around with the most basic turrets, the rifle turrets that come with Rampant, or even the more advanced gun turrets, I mean, it would still be tough to deal with these constant waves. And I don't even think I could do it then. So it's just sort of an incompatible level of difficulty with this mod pack. So I decided, you know what, the main thing about this is the logistical challenge. And so I made a tough choice, but a choice that I felt was necessary. I'm removing the Rampant mod at this point. And going forward, it's not going to quite be vanilla enemies. You're still going to have the additional types of spawners and the tougher enemies and the artifacts that come with Bob's mods. So I think there are some tactical changes in there too, I'm not sure. So it's still not quite vanilla, like it's a little tougher for vanilla, but it's not going to be the rampant craziness that I've proven quite conclusively that I can't quite handle on these combination of settings that I'm using. And like I said, I'm convinced that you might have a marginal case where you've got a utopia map, because I could have, you know, more trees around to shield the pollution and all of those things, so I wouldn't have aggravated them as fast. Maybe give myself more time to get ready. You know, I maybe change a few things to get things moving just a hair faster. But bottom line is, I think it's either completely impossible or darn close to it. And, you know, I spent enough time on this, sort of reworking. So, the main thrust of the LP will continue forward. It's going to be the whole logistical challenge. We're just going to do it without quite as much bite or craziness, which, again, is sort of a side thing compared to the key focus that we're going for. Alright, so after changing the mod setup and getting everything set here, doing a bit of research, there's 11 turrets here, and I've got a wall around the entire thing. See, I'm using the lake here on the side, so I've only got one there. And when I say I have a wall of turrets. I don't actually have stone walls yet. I want to get to that, but you know, and this took over 50 nanobot tubes to build. So this was not cheap, and it was not slow. We did eventually get there, a little over 6 hours, and everything's peaceful right now. I think largely because, you know, we can see they're still going around. Largely because the vanilla, not vanilla, the biters that are mostly vanilla with all the Bob stuff thrown in, they have to reset when you make a change like that. And they're going to take some time and assess the situation, figure out what they're going to do, but, you know, they're going to come. The one thing I was surprised by is the turrets only hold 10 magazines. I'd forgotten about that. It's been a while since I did this. So I've actually got plenty of, you know, of ammunition to go around, and we've now got this stupid long conveyor that's going to continuously have it going by more and more as more of it gets thrown out on the belt. And for now, we're secure. So what do we go from here? Well, there's all kinds of stuff I could do. I could hit electric mining. I definitely want to get a radar, get some exploring done, because I've got a bunch of pollution, but I still don't know anything more about the surroundings than I did when I started this game. And we're definitely going to eventually need more coal. I'm going to want to search for that so that I can build more radars to find more coal with which to power more radars, all of that fun stuff. You know, I mean, I could upgrade to more efficient steam power, do some research up the chemistry path. You know, I'm going to eventually want to expand beyond this, redo the whole stone area. There's a bazillion things that I could do, and I'll have to work on the priorities for that. But the initial defensive setup is here. And, you know, going forward, I should be able to proceed fairly smoothly, and it's just going to be a case of how do I make this thing running right and deal with the enemy efficiently. Eventually using the AI vehicles, of course. But take a while to build up to that. For now, static defenses. The usual traditional, you know, turret wall setup. So that'll be it for this sort of recap, restart, and I'll move forward on the normal time frame, probably looking at roughly a couple hours of play condensed into each video. So for those of who have returned and been patient and all of that, thank you. Hope you're still enjoying it, and I'll be back soon with more.